correct labeling, so that has been fixed with the correct years, so you can disregard the one that's in your binder and replace it with this one. The next one is a correction on the library where it has the FTE and the budget. When I converted this page to a PDF, it moved the material and services line items up one line. So I have fixed that, so it's all aligned to how it's supposed to be. And then the next few pages, there were some questions that came up at the last budget committee meeting. And so we have started an FAQ page on our website. And as the budget committee has questions and we provide responses, we're going to be posting that on the website. But we've provided a narrative information about some of the compensation questions that came up in regards to the police department and why the estimated actuals were going to be so low versus what we were planning to budget for next fiscal year. So this explains the compression discussion that we had on Tuesday in regards to some salary adjustments. Really, the major impact of the salary adjustments is just over about $34,000 total. If you include salary and benefit impacts. And then the reason that we have so much savings for this fiscal year is we have had, for example, a couple of retirements, and it takes time to fill the positions, and there's always a very extensive background process that has to happen before we can fill those positions. So that's really kind of the discrepancy as far as why they're not going to spend very much this year and what that impact is for next fiscal year for those salary adjustments. Then additionally, I know we're not in the Urban Renewal District Budget Committee, but I did want to bring up that we have posted some materials online as well as provided them to you that just kind of narrates a little bit what an urban renewal district is, how it's funded, how the financing works. And then we also included a link to the 2025 annual report. There's a lot of great information in this report, and I appreciate Suzanne putting it together. And it has the map, and it has like the incremental financing that we've received from the frozen base up to where we're at right now as far as that revenue. And so I just wanted to make sure that those documents were shared with you. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Anybody have any questions about the documents that Sean presented? None? Thank you so much for gathering these documents. So wonderful. Absolutely. Okay, we will return to our meeting agenda. And we are going to go to agenda item number 9C, City Communications. I'm going to call Saber Joel.
Hey, good evening, everybody. In our budget packet, we're going to be looking at pages 33. That's where we're going to begin this evening. And again, my name is Saber Jewell. I'm Communications Director for the city. And that's a role that I've been in since about October 1st of 2022. The council and this budget committee saw the importance of this role, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to serve the city in this capacity. The first couple of years, the role was really focused on that unified voice, right? Finding a way to interdepartmentally at least tell our story, and people know that it's the city of Monmouth, getting that credibility. The rebrand was also a priority, so we did spend 2024 working through that gorgeous logo that you see. 2025, we found ourselves really trying to deepen the connections. We've gained our followers, we've got our following, but it has to be more about that. How do we keep engaging people deeper? And so we really look to do that. Also auditing our systems. What's working? What's not working? We have some rhythm with our departments, but then putting together reports so that they can see whether or not it's truly working for them in the way that we're trying to promote their efforts. Now, what I foresee in 2026 being some of the biggest priorities are ADA accessibility across our website and social media. As many of you know, there's some ADA requirements that are coming down through the national list. And those requirement dates are different for populations over 50,000 and populations under 50,000. Those of us in the under 50,000 get a little bit more time to work on those things, but I'll talk more in a moment about why that's prioritized in this current budget. Like most cities our size, I am a department of one. And what that means is I'm your photographer, your videographer. I do our press releases, run our social media accounts, do graphic design, website updates. And I am a FAA unmanned pilot, which means I'm a drone pilot operator. Thank you. And I'm probably one of the only ones that I know I'm the only one in Polk County in communications that has that role. And it's been great to be able to not only take incredible footage of our beautiful city, but serve our building department and public works department flying the drone for them, because that keeps David Carr and Greg off of roofs, and that keeps us all very happy. I am, while I'm not in the uniform working 24/7, I am on call 24/7 to our police, public works, and power and light. A couple of those departments have utilized that service. Major outages, there we are, right? Wade and I, he loves how chipper I am at 4 a.m. Let's just say that. As far as spending in this department, it's stayed consistent through the years. Luckily, a lot of the systems that I've used haven't raised in prices. We haven't seen, I've built in little increments for things like that, but we haven't seen a great growth in that. We have had spikes. In 2024, we dedicated $10,000 toward the rebranding effort. I think in this budget, you're going to also see a little bit of spikes because we're looking to build in the ADA requirements and also finishing the mural on Gentle Woods Park. That is our old logo. It is the welcome sign to the community. And we have hired a Western Oregon student athlete to paint that. You may have seen her art in Cafe Eula. She did the beautiful landscape of sisters in there, and our Monmouth Bug in Monmouth Alley. So those are the two spikes that I think that you'll notice. As far as buckets of spending, just kind of how I set this up. 40% of my budget is how we reach people. That's through our Adobe, our Canva, our web hosting, our podcast host. And a lot of those things are spread throughout. What you'll see is those things are going to be mostly spread throughout the entire fund, because those things are what serve our entire departments. About 30% of that budget, okay, we've got their attention. How do we draw them in? It's how we do our town halls. It's the things we provide at our tabling events. It's those great Monmouth tote bags that show off that Monmouth, pride and a little bit of that logo and that association. When we're talking about rebranding, that's about 20% of this budget. And that highest piece of that is with the repainting of that mural. And then about 10% of that is going to be that training piece, development piece. Any of my memberships and association, that's rolled into that there. So those are the buckets kind of that I work from. And I take a look at that to make sure that the majority of my time and money is spent serving right back to the community. So I'm happy to take any questions. I know that was free, but I'm happy to talk about anything they'll like.
Any questions for Saber?
Sorry, I just looked this up, but we just got the new FTE spread for management and finance, and 0 of you is in the general fund.
I think I missed that. I may have messed that up. No,
I mean,
20% of her is, 20% of that position is. Sorry.
that sounds about right. Well, another correction, that FTE.
Because it was before.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Sabra, for the presentation. I absolutely love that your department is recognized in this way, in this fashion in the budget. It's so critical to all of our city operations, that level of communication that we have with our residents. And I think that, the fruits definitely show. So I'm grateful for that, grateful for you here tonight. Minor question about the budget here. This is page 36. The line item is employee safety programs. It looks like we had budgeted $1,000 for employee safety programs. Only about a quarter of that was spent. And normally I wouldn't question, a small expenditure of this nature, but when safety is associated to it, we're not spending on safety. That just, raises a little flag for me. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Sure, I'd have to refer. I'm not sure what's in that category, Sean.
Yeah, so thank you. As part of this, so when you're looking at the actuals, this is kind of an estimate. So we're just pulling this out to create its own department, and it's not officially its own department yet. And so I'm gonna say what is in the budget binder reflecting this year has not been approved by council yet, technically. And so in the supplemental budget, we will be presenting this for your consideration. If you don't approve it, then it's all zeroed out. So these are really estimates. If you combined the management and finance budget with this, it balances out to what has been approved by council. So it's kind of a rough estimate.
That's very helpful to hear and completely allays any of my concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Carey?
Good afternoon. Saber, just a couple of questions, and thanks for investing in microphones because I'm having a hell of a time hearing or discerning what is being said. So that's excellent use. There are a couple of line items that you may have touched on. On the professional services, you had budgeted a year ago 2,500. We're at 6,000 now. And it looked like 2,500 hit it just about right. And I'm curious about, the over 100% increase in that category. And then while you're looking at it, same thing is true with the city communication and engagement. And some of that might have to do with a mural. You talked about that, and I see you've got 4,800 identified for that. But if those are just too big, jump right out at you, questions that have to be asked.
I appreciate that, Committee Member Carey. And yes, those expenses are exactly that. The mural is that increase. I think I have that at about 4,875 is what else I owe for that mural project. Another 500 of it is going to, if I'm approved, will be to pay for a CHS senior to come take photographs with me this summer. So there is a couple of items in there that are outside of that, but that is the bulk of that. And then, yes, the other is for the ADA services. Our website alone is going to be, typically when we update that, is about $2,400. But the ADA upgrades that we're interested in pursuing now ahead of our deadline are at $3,900. Those website upgrades might also lead to other things like a potential outage map connected with our Monmouth Power and Light. So not only will we get an upgrade in our website with ADA, but we might get more bells and whistles with that upgrade as well.
Any further questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the 9E, community development, and you might have Suzanne Duffy.
Good evening, members of the Budget Committee. My name is Suzanne Duffner. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Monmouth. Pleased to be able to present the Community and Economic Development budget to you tonight. Not a lot of huge changes to point out from previous years, but I'll go through some of the highlights. First of all, this is a small department. We are doubling the size of the one person that Saber had to now 2 people in this department. It's myself and a community planner, Carter Craig. But we cover quite a wide breadth of various activities, and it involves a number of volunteer board and commission activities, as well as implementing some of the complete goals. So with the planning development applications, work with local businesses, providing that business support and economic development, working on our local zoning ordinance code updates, and also our 20-year plan for growth and development. It's kind of an overview of what we do. In terms of some of the priorities that we'll continue to work on in the coming year, housing and economic development continue to be high priorities of the city. So working on implementing some of the council's goals surrounding the housing production strategy and making sure that we're producing the adequate and affordable housing that's needed by our projections. And then also getting into, again, our economic opportunities analysis, which looks at the land supply of commercial and industrial land that's needed to support job and growth and development in our city. So in terms of the expenditure highlights, the FTE is planned to stay the same at the two FTE, myself and Carter. Professional services, and sorry, I guess I should back up. I'm on page 43 through 45, just rolling right through, but I'm hoping on that tab in the budget document. So on page 45, just looking at some of the changes, the larger changes to point out, the professional service line is that line that we use to hire professional consultants and help with some of that goal and grant work that we're trying to accomplish. So we do have a slight bump up to 51,000 planned for this coming fiscal year. And that will help us again with some of that housing production strategy implementation, key projects that we're working on, and then also getting back into the land supply for jobs, commercial industrial land, and implementing our economic opportunities analysis. It also includes working on a historic resource plan. So Carter wrote a successful grant to the state to be able to hire a historic preservation consultant to help us develop a plan around it. It's about 15,000. So excited to be starting that work in the coming year as well. Technology purchases, you'll see a bump up in that line item by quite a bit to $3,000 this next fiscal year. That's to purchase 2 new computers. So we have computers that are aging out, and thankfully we have great IT staff that are staying on top of that to make sure that we have those tools that we need to do our job. So the other item, I think I just want to point out that's not in here, and it's exciting news that we received another grant from the state. It's a $400,000 grant to do housing rehabilitation work. We've received these in the past, through so Polk Community Development Corporation operates this program. So it's really just a pass through. They do all the work and do the grants for eligible homeowners. They have to be able to own their own homes, and they live on either fixed, low, moderate incomes could qualify for these grants to be able to make repairs to their homes. Like if they have leaky roof that needs to be repaired, or just all sorts of various improvements to their homes. So we just found out of that good news, and so it's not hot off the press. It's not quite in this budget yet, but that will just to be fully transparent. You'll see that when it goes to council for the final document. And
value to that yet?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Value to that grant yet?
Oh, with the value of the amount of 400,000. Yeah. And this we will be doing for the council what's called a supplemental budget, because that will get the first payment for that grant before the end of this fiscal year, before June 30th. So about $25,000 is what we're estimating. So to be able to receive those monies and expend them to do that supplemental budget. So I talked about that with Sean, and we have that on the radar to make sure that gets processed. And then the remainder of that grant will get expended in the next fiscal year. So we'll make sure that that gets in here. And that's really all I had to point out in my presentation, unless there are questions I can answer.
Thank you, Ms. Devner. Looking on page 45 with the workload statistics, and I think it was mentioned last budget meeting that there's gonna be a reevaluation of the fees that are going to be charged, folks. It looks like, are these some of the fees that you're going to be exploring to increase in order to cover the salaries and the work that the city does?
Yes, I think we're looking across the board at all the city fees is my understanding, the direction. I will point out for the big one in this, particular department budget is the land use applications. And we've already implemented, which has it been 4 years ago or so, an automatic increase based on the cost of living index, that just happens as long as it's under, I believe, a 5% increase. It will every year it will automatically update. So we're already trying to stay on top of that rather than have to do really big increases at once, just get those incrementally all along. So we did take a conscientious look at that several years back to make some adjustments, but it's always good to check back in and make sure. I don't know that we'll ever get, that I've heard planning departments, they get 100% cost recovery, because it would probably make some of those fees, like the homeowner, very difficult to make any lot line adjustment, smaller adjustments and stuff to their property. So there is a balancing act that we have to, also look at what's a reasonable, and how can, we be more efficient as staff to do some of these things and using technology. But yeah, and then business registration, that's currently set at a one-time fee of $25. That we'll have to kind of evaluate that one. Again, that's another one. Don't necessarily want to discourage businesses from applying for that. It's not especially super labor intensive, but I think we're looking at everything just to see what there needs to be some adjustments, because it has not been adjusted. I think as long as we've had that ordinance, which has probably been over 10 years now. So, small changes maybe needed. We don't charge anything. I mean, there's no fee structure for code enforcement cases, and general assistance when people call in and ask what the zoning of their property is. So they're more in-depth public records requests or asking for confirmation and more research on zoning of property. We do have a PNRP schedule for that. So yeah, it's a long answer. Yes.
Under personal services, the estimated actual for 25-26 is 207,000. But the proposed is 260, and then last year the amount budgeted was close to that. Have you had a vacancy, or how did you stop taking salary, or what?
That is a really good question. We have not had a vacancy, so I don't know if maybe Sean can help answer that question.
I cannot. I'll have to look into why there's a difference there.
Yeah.
No, the future of the free world as we know it doesn't depend on the answer to that question. It's just a kind of curious.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
makes sense.
no, we're good.
Yeah, it's a good observation.
Mr. Carey?
Yeah, I have fat fingers here. I can't get the right button pushed. Thanks, Suzanne. Hey, great news on the housing rehab grant. That's good. That'll take a little effort to get that implemented and advertised and so on. Just two brief ones. Is there anything that we need to be budgeting for vis-a-vis the Area 1, the land swap, anything that, or is that just going to be part of the natural flow of things that goes? Is there anything special that might come out of that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Counselor. Yes, I guess I stated it more generally, housing implementation of housing strategies is one of the budgeted expenses under professional services, that 51,000 that's shown in the report. So that could be used if there is, for example, need for legal services to help with any potential appeals that could happen as we go through the final decision issuance of the UGB land swap. In terms of once it gets through a final decision, if that's approved, then really that cost burden goes more to the applicant and the developer owner at that point to pay those land use fees. So, nothing really jumps out at that point. And this fiscal year, we already have some of those budgeted expenses are showing through on this year's professional service line item. For example, some COG GIS mapping assistance to help us prepare the maps for it, having to prepare a legal description. So it kind of got split between 2 fiscal years.
Just a lot of the normal things that you would do on that kind of a thing. So nothing specific that we need to be budgeting for. Then the final one, and this, and you've been very active on economic development and, City Goal 4, and you're approaching that again. How are we measuring success on that? And I know this is a budget meeting, and maybe that's not the right question for this, but how are we measuring success on that particular line item in your planning? Thank you.
If I can interrupt. Yeah, I think, the city goals are in the appendix, Mr. Carey. Yeah, I will, unless Mr. Director Duffner wants to answer, I will ask that we continue the budget discussion.
I didn't get that. And if you need to move on, and if it's out of order, I'm happy to withdraw it, and we can talk offline on that. So I'll leave that to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but yeah, let's continue with our discussion on the budget. Are there any more questions related to the community development budget for Director Duffner?
Yeah, I actually, so I was just thinking about the salaries and wages and benefits in this line item. So, their salaries are allocated like many of ours are. And we're changing it for this next fiscal year where the allocation's just gonna be budgeted straight out. But what has happened this last year is that when a timesheet is submitted, at that point, she submits what she actually works on. And so that's how the allocation happens. So if she's spending more time on the urban renewal district, more of her salary is going to there. And that's why she's, no offense, a one-off for how the allocation process works.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Are there any more questions about community development budget? Thank you so much for okay, we'll move on to 9F, the revenue department. Thank all of you for over.
Good evening, Mayor Kent, councilors, and budget committee members. The library section starts on page 47 and goes to page 52. And I'm going to be brief in my comments this evening. The library's proposed budget, on which it shows up on page 52, is very similar to the current fiscal year. I would say that no significant change would be in the technology purchases line, where it goes from 2,400 up to 15,000, and that's on recommendation from the IT department for new computers for online library staff members. That will change. Throughout the library section, you can see we have samples of program flyers for both children's and adult programs, so you can get an idea of the variety of the great programs that my team is putting out there for our community. And some highlights for fiscal year 26, we partnered with One Garden Club and the Blue Veterans Club to refresh the Memorial Garden, which is in the front of the library around the flagpole. I just learned this myself. It's when they were moving into that new building, one of the employees had passed away. And so they put in a memorial garden of irrigated plants. And it had really run amok in 30 years. So the Garden Club and the Blue Veterans Club came in and cleaned it all up, replanted it with native plants, and it looks really good. It's starting to bloom out a little more, it looks really nice. We also partnered with the Monmouth Arts and Culture Commission to host the 4th annual community art show, which has always been a lot of fun and a great success. We get a lot of really good comments. People really enjoy seeing all the creativity that friends and neighbors have to offer. Through our capital improvement project, we installed automatic door openers on the restrooms and this is exciting. Additionally, we replaced 2 old weather-worn wooden doors, the exterior meeting room door and the Technical Street door with color steel doors. And then we painted all the entrance next door, so it looks really, really nice now. And we recently installed a self-checkout station for patrons, so we're excited about that. We're jumping right into the 21st century here. One of our goals for fiscal year 27 is to research the cost of enclosing one or both alcoves that are located in the adult collection area. I think it would be a great space for study rooms, virtual job interviews, telemed appointments, webinars, testing, give a little privacy and enclose it. We have a lot of people that come do interviews. We have DHS does interviews with parents. We have our TDC, they come do interviews sometimes or ask for space to do that. And we don't currently have space really to offer for that. So I think it would be a really welcome addition to the library. And once we get an idea of the cost, then we can start looking for grant opportunities to make that a reality. So that's all I have for the library. I'll be very brief.
Any questions?
Would you be able to use any of the Swenson Fund money for the computers?
For the what?
The Swenson Fund for the computers? You said IT suggested you get a computer system.
We might be able to, but we're limited year to year of how much comes in and how much goes out. And that is a good segue. If there's no other questions, we can go to the Swenson.
And just, yeah.
Let's continue with the general question.
Okay.
I have a question about library personnel. You have 1, 2, 3, looks like 3 or 4 positions that are not full-time, but they would still have insurance benefits.
We have 3 full-time, all the rest 6 are part-time. So the library assistant one, there are 2 half-time. That makes the 1.
And so the 0.6 doesn't get insurance?
No, only the 3 great librarians are full-time and we're the only ones who get.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Well, I have a quick, besides the Swenson Fund, there's money not in this budget from the Community Foundation. Some is to the library itself and some is for the Friends, and those endowment funds have done pretty well in the last few years and are available as well. So probably, and a lot of those are unrestricted, so you can look at that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chris. I have a question about the one of the library projects that's in the CIP that is directed to come from potentially from the general fund. This is the library roof project, and it is on page 42 of the CIP. Could you speak a little bit to the current condition of the roof and I noticed that there is a placeholder for roof replacement costs that has not been included, and I'm reading from 42, that has not been included until more information is known. Could you speak a little bit to that roof replacement project?
Yes, recently, within the last few weeks, I believe 5 bids were received. The one bit of information I don't have is if any of them commented on the lifetime end of life, I guess, of the roof. It's currently the building is 31 years old this year. After year 5, they had to replace the roof because it was put on wrong, faulty or something. So the roof then is 26 years, which is generally end of life, close to life, not for roofs. So I don't have that information, but the bids run from 136,000 up to 196,000, almost 197,000. So there's a big difference in the the bids. The roof, the placeholder was just to grab it out of the air and stick it in there.
What kind of roof it is?
I believe they're all
What kind of roof it?
the asphalt shingle, I believe. I mean, we asked specifically about metal roofs, thinking that might be, you know, a longer last, and apparently they're similar price and or maybe a little more, so. But there's a bid at right currently, you know, we're talking about right now, 139,000, almost 140,000, is the second lowest bid, but it has lifetime warranties on manufacturer workmanship, which I think is valuable because the lowest bid has 5 years on the workmanship, so, you know.
The follow-up with them. Thank you very much. And so, you know, for clarity to make sure I understand this, in that CIP, it shows $40,000 in 25-26 and $90,000 in 26-27 for a total of 130. Is it thought that would mostly cover that roof replacement, or is that going to leave a large gap?
The 40,000 was expended this year.
Okay.
From the automatic doors, the exterior doors and police had an emergency HVAC all worked out that it was covered. So, yeah, I think I just didn't put anything forward with that because I was really unsure.
Okay, thank you. That helps to clarify. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this might be a little bit off topic. Okay. This is from my imperfect memory. Was it last year or the year before? You were talking about replacing the air conditioning? Or has that been?
We've done that.
That's not
That was been taken care of a few years ago.
okay, never mind.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Perry?
The question I have, Chris, is I'm looking at the utilities line on the budget. You've been moving along pretty, you know, 31,000, 33,000, budgeted 46 last year and are estimated to spend about 30 this year. We're back at 46. We got a pretty good trend line there. Is there something that's changed in the utility costs that are manifesting here?
I think you must have one of the original pronouns that was there was an error in it. And yours, you need to kind of tilt, so the utilities is the line above where you think it is. So the 46,000 is actually facilities maintenance.
Oh, my,
They just kind of got off sync. So it's
bad bifocals on my part.
Right,
Eyes are fine. Keep your hand on straight there.
too much golf.
This time it's not you.
Are there any more questions?
Committee member Carrie, I did email all the materials that were handed out today to you, so they may be in your email.
Okay.
Are there any questions? Staying on, thank you so much. Oh, you. Go ahead.
Yeah. We'll get you out of here. Swanson Fund starts on page 99. There it is. For the Swanson Fund, basically FY26, we purchased 2 new tables for use in the meeting room. We're trying to find a better replacement for our aging tables that are getting really wonky and tend to not hold up. We've had tables worked up, just dumped on the floor because the little hook sidebars aren't working. So we're trying out different tables for that. We purchased 2 new staff work chairs, important for ergonomics for staff, and 2 adult-sized chairs for the children's area. We're using a lot of parents squatting down on the little kids' chairs. Other people are hungry.
Thank you.
For 27, we're, planning on purchasing a people counter for right around $4,000 today's value. And that was something we were gonna do this year, but we put it off mostly because of the switch in IT. They had a lot on their plate and they're still trying to get everything up and going. We didn't want to add to that, so we defer it till next year. And then other library furniture and equipment is needed.
She sort of answered it before.
Any questions about this one so far? Seeing none, we'll. Listen to pages. We're gonna go to 9G, Senior Community Center, invite up Barbara Coleman, Senior Community Center Director.
Hello, thank you, members of the budget committee. I'm gonna put on my copycat hat for a second. Like Police Chief Haynes, I'd like to start with reading our mission statement. I think it drives home kind of the goals of what you're gonna see throughout our budget. The Monmouth Senior Community Center provides a welcoming and safe refuge that includes all people, promotes mutual respect and tolerance, and offers health, welfare, and lifelong learning opportunities while building a sense of family and friendship. So, as such, we are known as a leader in not just this community, but in Polk County, and the surrounding area. Our department is driven by relationships, community building, and a wide variety of programs and volunteer opportunities, of which Committee Member Lowry can attest. He's my esteemed knife sharp at the senior center on a monthly basis. We actually have 3,861 hours in the last year of volunteer hours given at the Monmouth Senior Center. That is an equivalent of 1.85 FTE. As another department of one, I rely heavily on our volunteers, and I'm very grateful for all of them. Some of the accomplishments from our last year include not only our robust volunteers, we were able to, in the last year, secure an AARP Age-Friendly Communities mini grant to help drive our age-friendly work. That was in the amount of $3,000, and that money was spent on a 3-part senior housing speaker series in the fall, and all of the expenses related to creating and implementing and soon to be distributing AARP age-friendly survey for our community members to get a better sense of how Monmouth can measure up and improve in the realm of 8 domains of livability in our community. We've also had a big increase of intergenerational programming, including partnerships with Mid-Valley Parenting, student success groups, and just recently a table at the county's Fam Jam event, which is for families ages 0 to 6, but realizing also that older adults are often part of the family unit. And there are many people like myself that are in what's considered a sandwich generation, raising young kids and aging parents, and helping as a resource with aging parents, and then also grandparents that are raising grandkids and the primary caregivers for them, even if they aren't the sole custodians. We were also, I was able to help plan and implement with county folks our Older Adult Summit. This is the 3rd year we've been able to put this on. This is a great event that targets professionals that work with older adults in whichever realm that they're in, to help provide them resources and make sure we're not all reinventing the wheel and siloed within our departments. You can actually benefit from each other and then that sort of networking. This year was also exciting with the creation of a new senior center coalition within Polk and Marion counties. This is something myself, the director over at Center 50 Plus, and a few other local senior center directors were wanting to get started. And it officially got off the ground, and there was a grant opportunity available within the Senior Center Coalition as well. And we were, you'll get to see this later on page 89 on the grants page, but we were able to receive a $35,000 grant from Mountain West Center for Excellence Senior Services Grant. What we are planning on doing with that money in the new calendar year in this proposed budget is to hire a part-time driver to implement a pilot of a dial-a-ride service strictly for our senior center members. It is something I get, probably the number one thing I get phone calls about, several phone calls throughout the month, asking, how do I get to this appointment? How do I go visit my sister in Kaiser? Is there a way I can do this or that? And it's something I'm excited to move forward on getting community feedback on and implement in this new year to see how we could potentially be serving our seniors in this area in that way. There's potential for that to be sustained through grant money in the future, but also looking forward to exploring what that would look like to sustain. Some expenditure highlights that you'll see in this proposed budget is a change that you won't see exactly on here is that I'm taking a step away from as many food-based programs in the last calendar year as costs have risen and gotten a little more unpredictable. We're kind of stepping away from that and focusing more on music and art type things in this upcoming calendar year, see if we can find that those costs are a little more predictable. You'll see a big change in postage. That's due to a new outreach program at the senior center. And it's a group of folks that are making sure that we're actually doing snail mail correspondence with people. Not everyone, there's still a tech divide. And so there's a lot of folks that really could benefit from getting a birthday card in the mail, getting a card in the mail from us when the senior center has been a big part of their life, to know that their friends are still looking out for them if they end up in a rehab or a hospital and things like that. You'll also see, because of this potential new program, an increase in vehicle maintenance and fuel costs as those are rising as well. I built that into some budget. And also you will see under technology purchases, we are part of the new computer. And it's my computer. It's not a slate of computers, so it'll be one replacement. Also in the you can turn with me to page 46 in the CIP. We have some potential to work on feasibility for senior housing project and also senior center facility renovation. As all of the renovations we've talked about in the CIP in past years, that's available to funding streams coming in from other sources that would never come out of the general fund directly, but it would be through donations or grants from other sources. So it wouldn't move forward unless that were the case. And the only thing that you will see coming out of the general fund, which is budgeted for in my document, is there needs to be a replacement of our furnace. Not in both sides of the building, but in the older part of the building, we're quite a bit overdue for replacing that unit. And it actually come to my attention just this week that it may be slightly under that $9,000. So it's rare that things come in. So it likely won't hit that $9,000 mark, which I'm delighted to tell you. There's one last thing I wanted to bring up. So looking forward into 2026, those are kind of the expenditure highlights. You'll notice back in the senior center page, let me turn there before I keep going. Should have kept my finger marked in that page. So coming back to the budget and the workload statistics, I just think it's exciting to see trends of people spending more hours in the senior center, and the number of times people are swiping coming into the building has just continued to increase since our reopening from COVID exponentially. Not just more people coming in, more members, but people spending more hours in the building. And with that, we look forward to another successful year of combating ageism and social isolation in our community. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
So, excuse me, so as we're looking at tighter budgets for us and here in Monmouth, how many people or what percentage of the users in the senior center are from outside Monmouth?
I don't have an exact number for you in this document, but I would say roughly 60% of our users are Monmouth residents or 97361 area code. And then the rest are from not just Independence, but Dallas, Salem, Rick Rial, rural areas. And we even have members from Corvallis and Salem.
Does Independence or Dallas, Polk County in general, provide any funds for the senior, maintain the senior center?
No.
And so actually, I can't do the math that fast, but it looks, if we have 40% of the users of the senior center that are outside Monmouth, there's a cost per person for Monmouth residents to support the senior center. And I think as budgets get tighter, we might need to look at charging fees, asking Independence and Dallas to start chipping in. Do people who are outside in Monmouth have to pay a fee to participate in the senior center?
They do not currently.
And I would love to do that, but if, you know, we're gonna be starting to like look at really hard decisions. And I think this is a value added for Independence folks and Dallas folks, Fulton County folks. And I think there's other governments out there that, I mean, they're tough too, but this is good for their people as well. And I think we need to figure out something that they can start chipping in to maintain our center.
That's certainly a conversation worth having with council. And I will also say that at the county level, the Polk Community Resource Center and several departments within the county do provide services at no cost within the center. So we have a lot of community programming partnerships that happen from that county level, but you're correct in that they're not directly funding the just day-to-day usage costs, yeah.
If I could stop.
Sure.
I don't want to have it so that they can't come, right? Because it's good for them. It's good for our broader community. However, I think there needs some assistance. We can't, I think, shoulder that financial burden when we're tight.
Sure.
You wear a different t-shirt.
I'm sorry.
You wear a different t-shirt if they're from out of town.
All right, I take back my comment.
And I would like to just follow along with what Carol's saying. Parents used to have senior center. They closed it, used that money to augment other places in their budget. Dallas used to have senior center.
They still do.
They still do.
Oh, they still do.
Dallas.
People come here for
Correct.
some reason.
Yeah, well, because we're cool.
Yeah.
We're cool.
No, seriously.
But
Because of the programming. There are only 2 senior centers in Polk County, and it is ourselves and Dallas area seniors. And we are able to offer a lot more through our partnerships, and because we're a department of the city that has a lot of robust leadership and offerings. Yes.
yeah, you know, so Krista's gone, but as Independence's library hours dwindle, more of their folks are coming to our library, always have, but more will continue. And, you know, I think we need to start having that conversation. I don't know what it sounds like. I don't know what the last words in it would wind up being, but I think we need to have the conversation.
Good question.
To follow up with this, are you gonna, and the same?
It's kind of a follow-up.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Micah.
Well, I think we have a model for doing things together. We run the trolley together. We have a sports complex of some kind that we did with Independence. So there's a model that we can share expenses. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was already said, but we just want to make sure that it doesn't become cost prohibitive if we charge some folks but not other folks. However, I think some of our friends groups have really helped
Oh, yeah.
spread that message. The friends of the library, friends of our parks, because everybody uses all the parks too, different cities. We don't, are you a Monmouth resident here? So we just need to make sure we don't become unwelcoming in the place where things die instead of things grow. So, but I do understand if we're providing services and resources for folks that aren't getting them otherwise.
Yeah, get that photo ID out.
Wristbands.
Any further questions?
Thanks.
Yeah. We'll go to non-H, Parks and Recreation, item, Director David Carr.
Good evening, Budget Committee. For those of you who don't know me, I am the new Public Works Director, David Carr. I replaced Russ. So this is my first budget, so bear with me.
Welcome.
She's been here 2 weeks. I've been in the position 2 months, so it's been interesting, to say the least. So I want to go over some of the things the Parks Department accomplished last year that are pretty visible. I think everybody is aware of. Don't understand necessarily the work that goes into pulling some of these things off. The storybook walk around Main Street Park has been really successful. We partner with the library on that. We still fund some of the recreation grants for things like we had the Winter Wildlife Field Day in the park last year. That was pretty successful. We still partner with Friends of General Woods Park for maintenance on some of those things. If you haven't noticed, they were out last weekend maintaining General Woods Park and did a really good job. We replaced the interior sidewalk on Main Street Park. The cost of that project was probably a little more than we anticipated, but it was a needed upgrade. I think any of you who've been in there when that park was full, that sidewalk really needed to be replaced. The big one, obviously, is the MRP Park. If you haven't been down there and looked at it, you really need to get down there. The bathroom is 99.9% completed. We just have to do soap dispensers and things like that inside the stalls to get that fully functional for us to feel comfortable opening it up. It allows us to get rid of the porta potties that have been sitting there for 3 years also. The picnic pavilion is 100% completed. And that is, we will have a dedication ceremony at some point because it was accomplished with a grant, $20,000 grant. The boardwalk is going to begin construction early next week and should be done by the end of next week, minus the signs. We just ordered the signs yesterday because we needed those to address the education element of the OPRD grant that's using to pay for the majority of these improvements. Looking forward to next year, we're really gonna focus on some of the ADA accessibility improvements on some of these parks, not just sidewalks. If you've been to Cherry Lane, it has the ADA qualifying picnic table. We need to make some of those more available throughout our parks. Drinking fountains, we just replaced a drinking fountain just a couple of weeks ago. It was old and outdated, so we just upgraded it with an ADA compliant drinking fountain. And we are going to, I'm hoping, initiate, we're working with a provider right now to initiate design for adding some inclusive playground equipment down at MRP Park. That is a pretty big lift. Obviously, we're gonna start the design. Those facilities are not cheap by any means. So what we're trying to do is let this existing OPRD grant finish up. It has to be done by June 31st, and then we can turn around and look at getting some additional grants, because grants for facilities like that are easier to get than some other grants for parks, right? If you're opening it up for increased capacity, for mobility, restricted people, and not just mobility, it's across. Going through the budget, you will see our personnel services dropped a little bit, and I want to explain that. Previously with the allocations, we have a parks employee. He was 100% in the parks. Well, we will have issues, say for instance, a water leak. Guys get into overtime. All of his overtime went 100% to parks. It kind of skewed those numbers. So I've reallocated, broken some of those percentages off to be more representative across all the funds. So knowing the issues with the general fund, trying to limit our impacts as Public Works to that fund as much as possible, but still maintain our level of service to the public. See, professional services, that is for our summer hire. That is a really critical element. And what you'll see is our reservations and park usage during the summer is increasing every year. So having that person, they're the ones that come in Saturday, clean out the trash cans, clean the bathrooms, and Sunday morning. So they're the ones behind the scenes doing those things. So that's a really critical element for our parks to keep up with the level of use they're seeing, which is pretty incredible if you're paying attention. The operating supplies, I know we're only showing about half of that being used. I'm not sure the best way to say this, but I wasn't part of the Public Works Department until 2 months ago, so I can't really understand the direction of why. I don't know what happened, if there was something other priority and didn't come out of that fund, but I will tell you, I will be using my fund money if it's approved in the budget. I'm already looking back, I'm already buying equipment and I can go over that later, but, facility maintenance and repair, and then additional, you'll see down park improvements. What the intent of that is, what we've seen is there's a lot of deferred maintenance on some of the park facilities. The fountain, cleaning up the concrete, the amphitheater stage needs to be re-etched. It's getting slick. There is, I've got notes, so bear with me. I wanted to speak more to that the skate park. The skate park is a big one. We were advised when that was completed that it would need to be resealed in a certain duration. It was initially indicated it was a year, but depending on the cost for the sealer, you can push that out. We have reached out to the initial contractor. For them, they offered when they got complete to come down and do an assessment and make recommendations that we could use just moving forward. Don't have to bring them in anymore. If you know the company, they build skate parks all over the world. They're not in the country right now, so we haven't had that conversation. They build them in Israel. I've got pictures. I mean, all over the country. So it's a really good company. For the park improvements, that money there's a long list of requested improvements from the general public. Some of those, I'll give you an example, is to add striping to the Madrona basketball court. That's a great example. I'm not saying I'm gonna, just telling you. The tent,
Sure, as a Hoosier.
the resurfacing of the tennis courts at MRP Park and potentially repurpose that court either to split between tennis and pickleball or something along. I've actually had an increase in tennis players requesting that court being brought back up to a level of service. Potentially initiating the design for additional pickleball courts. We have to get those designed and everything first before we can actually build them. My approach to a lot of these is I want to spend money to get these things designed, have them on the shelf. We get through the next budget cycle. I'm pulling from the shelf. We're going here and I'm getting the next round designed. Instead of trying to get it all done in that 12-month window of a typical budget cycle, it's very difficult for some of our larger projects to make that happen. So I'm trying to be a little more studious and plan those things out moving forward over the years so I'm not just loading it up 1 year when we have a bunch of designs. That's trying to be a little more responsible with the budgeting and all those things. I think I've explained everything. There are the utilities we're still working on. There's not a super defined answer, but we will be making our efforts to bring those numbers back down. Those utilities went up across the board for most of the other funds you'll see later for sewer and water. We've seen that increase. And then there's a lot of contributing factors. There's not necessarily one thing that's driving those costs up. I think we're all aware. Yeah, so that is, some of the monies that were a little higher last year is due to, like Main Street Park, we had some trees after the storm. Those things we can't really plan year to year. They don't happen every year. It's only happened twice since I've been here. Once was last year, and then obviously the ice storm a couple years before that. And it really sucks removing trees, but you have to consider the safety of the general public. And the two that were removed were right over all the playground equipment. So we got on those pretty quick and got them out of the way to make it safe for people. So I think those are kind of the highlights as it relates to the Parks and Rec Fund. And I would welcome any questions you have or any discussions or anything. Being it my first time, I'm
Ready to roll?
ready to roll.
I don't know if this is a typo or what, but as I look at the Parks and Rec personnel, which this year is correct, 1.65.
Previous year should have been 1.75.
Last year, 1.75. You go back and every other one, the total FTE is wrong.
Correct, so
The column.
working through our spreadsheets, because I have my own, there's been, and I can't explain it, it's just transmits the numbers left or right or up or down, and there's been no explanation, but it's been corrected.
Okay.
Forward.
I'm just curious.
No, I was sitting back there getting ready to present, and I'm reading that going, that doesn't add up. So.
Thank you, Chair. I had raised my hand earlier. I'm sorry. I can hold. Okay. Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for the presentation. I am particularly excited that the boardwalk will be finished shortly. I cannot tell you how excited I am. So, I did want to just loop back, and you mentioned it briefly in your presentation, loop back to the utilities line item. And I recognize that you're a couple months in. In this fund, this fund was slightly over budget, or is expected to be slightly over budget in this, current calendar year. And that utilities line item is the largest driver contributing to that. And so I would just ask and encourage you to develop a concrete understanding of where and what and how and why, and I appreciate your faith that it'll be lower this coming year, but that huge jump does concern me a little bit, and it concerns me that it could be not just a spike but the beginning of a trend. So I'm excited that you're at the reins, and we'll see where it all goes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the one question I had was under your line for fuel. We had obviously are experiencing, great fuel cost increase, yet you budgeted the same amount as last year. So I hope we're not expecting yourself there.
Yeah, we're not expecting the fuel price to be the same as last year. What we're doing is those allocations, we're distributing more evenly funds. So one individual fund is not getting hit harder, especially the parks one, because the budget on this is considerably less than our utility fund. So I have to pay a little more attention to this one because every dollar matters, obviously. And it is going up, and we talked to the fuel supplier, we get our fuel in bulk, so we do get it cheaper, but some of the newer vehicles that were purchased last year, their allocations are distributed a little more evenly instead of just 100% to the park, because they're not 100% used for the park. They're used for water responses, weekend call outs, things like that.
Thank you. And a couple things. First of all, committee member Lopez, the material and supply budget, which includes those utilities, is actually estimated to come in under budget. The total bottom line item is estimated potentially to be over budget, but that looks like it's mostly from the capital expenditure line. Anyway.
One way of looking at it, but sure.
Anyway, I just want to say, considering that the overall budget is a little bit up, but a lot of that is capital. All the plans you're making sound amazing, and having an engineer, I guess, as our public works director, thinking ahead, like strategic investment and planning ahead, might be paying off.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's some of my background, having worked, I actually worked for a contractor, North San Diego Paving. I had my own company for 9 years, so this stuff is important to me. Having run my own company, I was the guy that had to come home and tell my wife I wasn't bringing home a paycheck that month, which is not a great conversation. So this stuff is really important to me.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Carr. We'll get to basketball in a second. But looking into the future, as electric, I think there's electric trucks, electric vehicles. Are we going to be focusing on those? They're not cheaper, but it will take care of fuel costs. Are we looking at purchasing hybrid trucks? I know are starting to come out, which would decrease fuel costs.
Honestly, we have not really considered that yet due to our trucks, the dual use hauling pipe, dirt, gravel, they have a bigger payload unless you buy a Tesla truck, which we don't need the optics of that. But yeah, I mean, moving forward, that technology gets better every year. It gets more reasonable every year. I'm not saying it's off the table, but there's other considerations those vehicles get used for. We could dedicate vehicles. We even had to get rid of the Ford Rangers due to how much trash we pick up on a daily basis. They were getting overloaded and, squatted in the back. And so they have full-size half-ton trucks now to perform that service. It's not off the table by any means. With council goals, I should probably look into that in a little more detail and see if that's applicable in any avenue of what we do at Public Works.
Yeah, I know we came up with those goals like 5 years ago or so, maybe longer. And the technology, as you noted, has changed a lot since then. I think even 5 years ago, in some ways it wasn't reasonable, but now it's, yeah, I mean, I didn't mean the big trucks because those I think will always be, still be pigs all along. But I think besides the fuel cost savings, is also the lower carbon footprint that we're all trying to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for looking at that. And I just have to talk about basketball for a second. Okay. So my kids were here, my grandkids were here, we went to Madrona Park and they went, Grandma, you can't play basketball without lines. and I was like, they're all Hoosier genetically anyway. So I was like really embarrassed. So I thought, and I know we talked about it, I mentioned it to Marty, years ago, but it was the paint, nobody could get paint for a while. And anyway, I gotta make my grandkids happy here, Mr. Carr, so.
Asking said.
Yeah, the supply chain.
There was some spray paint.
The supply chain for the painting is the issues in supply chain are no longer there. We actually ordered our paint for our street striping that we're gonna be doing, and the price has actually come down. I think our price for the paint we do a quarter of the town a year and just cycle it was not even $3,500, which blew me out. It wasn't what I was expecting. So there's some good indicators on the horizon. Everything's they get exposed here and there. Something's too high or too low. And we're finding it's very easy to negotiate with some of the suppliers right now due to price. Today we had to order some new equipment and we kind of pushed back and got a 20% discount just for asking the question. Right.
And I just want to clarify, this would not be for my own grandchildren. There's lots of young people, I think not having those basketball lines, the lines on the basketball court actually dissuades them from having the game. They just go out and do shots, but you really can't play, as you know, you can't play without the lines. So I think it would really encourage people to get out there and play. My grandkids don't come enough to worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Basketball's a big important thing to me. Told everybody I graduated from Central. If you go to high school, my name's on some of the stuff up there. I was part of the state championship team in the early 90s. So that is my sport. I love to play. It's not the sport I was the best at, but it was the sport I loved to play.
Yeah.
Me too.
I was a good defender.
I was a rebounder. You can't tell by looking at me now, but I had like a 40-inch vertical leap in high school. I got into my position. I was the rebounder. They didn't need me to score. I had plenty of guys that could score, so I was the rebounder.
They never brought the ball down to my side of the court.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to vote for tennis. My daughter's a tennis player. The CHS courts are aging, the Western courts are aging, so go tennis.
Yeah, that's great. That was the one that surprised me a lot when I became Public Works Director, fielding the calls from the public. And you made me feel old because I actually designed and constructed the central tennis courts. So when I worked for North Sandian Paving, we built those. But yeah, it was, and I don't know what it's rooted in, but it's been a big uptick in people looking back to tennis. So we've been trying to do something with that court for a few years.
Are there any more questions about the public, our Parks and Recreation budget?
Thank you. I have it on my calendar because Cody sent it to me when he went to a picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to finish our last two general fund presentation before we take a break?
Perfect.
It'll go quick.
Okay. We'll pass it back to the city staff for 9I J, municipal court and non-environmental, and then we will take our.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The total municipal court budget is $95,012. Historically, the municipal court judge was budgeted in an FTE and paid from salaries and wages line item. So you'll notice that there's a significant drop in salary and wages from this year to next year. The budget for the judge's salary is actually now going to be a personal services contract and come out of professional services. So you'll see an increase there. However, we did reduce the number of courts that we're going to hold per month because with criminal court moving to the county, we've kind of touched on this already. Our dockets are just much smaller. So one court is all that we need. So it's going to cut our costs almost in half. And so with that, we do have a 0.80 FTE, our court clerk, and she performs all court-related activities as far as managing the court and working with people to clear up their citations and so forth. And then she spends the other percent of her time actually helping the finance staff. So with customer service, answering phones, taking utility payments at the counter. And so with a reduction of some staff in finance, having her kind of have the ability to shift over and help us, especially during peak times when students are moving in or moving out, that's been a huge increase for support for our finance team. And I don't really have a whole lot else to talk about court. So any questions?
Any questions about municipal court?
Thank you. So you mentioned the frequency of the court is going to be reduced. So you say once a month?
Mm-hmm.
With the reduction in operations, are there any other savings in some of these smaller categories that would be, for example, postage or printing or things that go downstream, or is it still going to be static across the?
So that piece remains static. So like the postage and stuff like that is really about the court clerk sending out notices that for failure to appear or you missed a payment on your payment plan and a delinquent type thing. So that's more just operational behind the scenes outside of an actual court session.
Okay, thank you.
Saying that, we'll move on to the next section.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The non-departmental classification is for expenditures that are not attributed to a specific city department within the general fund. It reflects stuff that we're required to report on for GASB 87. So when we talk about copier, small equipment leases, we have to report those. So this is kind of a centralized fund, if you will, that we have placed those in. Additionally, this is also the place where we budget our contingencies and reserves for our general fund. So it's a placeholder there. I am looking at kind of the format of how we have this particular narrative, because when we talk about accomplishments for the fiscal year, well, we didn't spend contingency. I don't know. So I'm probably going to end up taking that piece out, because if I say accomplishments, it's really, I'm talking about like the previous fiscal year. So it doesn't really align to the next fiscal year. So anyway, that's just basically kind of a placeholder. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Any questions about non-departmental?
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the contingencies and reserves, and I'm sure this is just me not forgetting or not remembering how this works. But the estimated actual for contingencies and reserves for FY 25-26 is listed as zero. We're expecting to end the year without anything in those categories, or how is that accounted for? I know that's not right. You
Yeah.
can correct my memory.
It's a super confusing category. Yeah, we don't spend them, so it's gonna be zero.
Yes, great.
We want
Thank
them
you.
to always be zero, because if we see a number there, that means we spent them. And then we'll roll them up into the beginning fund balance at the next fiscal year. So I know it looks kind of like what happened here, but yeah, it's a good thing when it's zero.
So that I understand, anything that would be in there that's not spent is accounted for in, and I don't remember what it's called, but the rollover funds. The working capital. Thank you. Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
that's great.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we will reconvene at 8:07. Yes.
9 minutes.
8:07.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your patience.
Restart our budget. And go through agenda item number 11. Board plan and item Suzanne.
Yes. And I'm here to present the tourism fund budget. So this is a budget or a fund that's primarily received its revenues from our hotel tax or our transient lodging tax that we charge 9% on a hotel overnight stays. Also applies to, so we have two hotels, right? We have the College Inn, Montaire's, and then Airbnbs. It also applies to those as well. Historically, the state law allows the city to use 30% of those revenues that can go into our general fund. And the other 70% has to be spent on tourism related activities. And that law just recently changed by the legislature. Now it's going to be a 50-50 split. So it doesn't go into a good news for the general fund. I agree with that celebration. So that doesn't go into effect, that law, the 50-50 split, until January 2027. So with this budget, we're still showing the 70-30 split, but there will be some changes coming to anticipate in the next fiscal year as a result of that. So this budget is pretty similar in that the main difference is we're winding down work on a travel Oregon grant that we were fortunate to receive last year. It's a $50,000 grant to complete a visitor accessibility assessment. So looking at our businesses that have their visitor facing, have guests that come from out of town and visit them. So our coffee shops or restaurants, all of our great businesses that people want to see from out of town, get to have a free assessment to look at how they can improve their spaces or recognize things that they are doing now that make them accessible to people of all different abilities. And so this is really consistent with also our council goals of inclusivity. So it's great that we're able to offer these services, and hopefully we'll be able to build on them in subsequent years and do some of the implementation of the assessment. But yeah, so there is you'll see most of that work is completing this fiscal year. There's a little bit bleed over into the fiscal year 27, but that was kind of the big bump up on our grants that we received. A lot of these funds, they get utilized for tourism event support, so helping things like 4th of July festival and music in the park. Just all the various fun activities that are held in the city and also designed to attract visitors. We do some advertising. We've got a great going on. The blue squirrel on the record, would you like to stop? A little later tonight. And so yeah, just some great things going on, and it's been nice to see the uptick in events and greater utilization of the park. That's something that our businesses, in particular mom and pop Main Street businesses, really appreciate, as bringing people, customers downtown, giving them a reason to come downtown and stay and patron the businesses. So just a lot of great partnerships with Monmouth Business Association, downtown businesses, doing some really good work there. And then I think the only other thing I wanted to point out about the budget, so this fiscal year we had quite a chunk on page 104 budgeted in the miscellaneous category. That there was 30,000, and that was a little unusual in that we didn't know if we were going to get that Travel Oregon grant. We had to have some match funds for that, so we just kind of, it was a little bit of a placeholder to say, hey, that we know that there's some opportunities we're going after. We're trying to leverage some additional funding to do further improvements in the Monmouth alleyway next to City Hall, and so the Travel Oregon grant was one that landed on there. But going forward next fiscal year, we put those, and we took it out of the miscellaneous fund and tried to put them in actual line items. You know, if we thought we were going to do some work in the alley, then we put that into the actual expense item that would be associated with. So just to try to be a little more accurate on where that spending was going to land rather than a general category. So, and with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you might have about the further
Questions?
Any insights into the top line of the workload and statistics of lodging tax revenue annual thing down 16.7%. And the year before that, it was only 10% up after being in the 20s and beyond. Any insights as to what's going on there?
Yeah, I think that we saw what was called revenge tourism after coming out of COVID. People had just pent up and were planning on fabulous travel. And so we saw those numbers, you know, those hotel stays going up higher. So I think we're just kind of correcting and getting back into a little bit of normal there. But I have heard that, yeah, there's been a little bit of slowing, and you know, I don't know if that's just budgets are doing right now.
And are we seeing revenues coming in from the short-term rental houses around town?
That's we've talked about that at the staff level as well. If there's still the the catch as catch can, like some folks know to come and ask if they need a permit and that they should be paying taxes. Others may not be aware that they need to be doing that. So us as staff are trying to do a little bit better, like auditing, going to some of the websites to find where those locations might be and do some education on that to create some better awareness. So yeah, great observation.
My question is generally the same about the unlicensed Airbnb. What people are doing without being licensed.
Yeah. So right now, we've just been handling that primarily as a complaint-driven basis, like we would with code enforcement. So if we hear about one, we try to do that education and get compliance. But there's a next level as we're trying to make sure all of our fees and revenues are coming in as needed. To actually be a little proactive and go out and do some research through the websites. Can be tricky to kind of find if they don't list a specific address, but Marvin isn't that big, so it makes it a little easier.
And our fees are generally not out of line as far as other communities or.
Yeah, I haven't done a more like within the last year research of that, but overall comparing our planning permit fees, yes, we've been either lower or, you know, very, very reasonable and in line with what other communities our size are charging.
Any other questions about the tours? None, we want back.
The two are pretty good to hear me again. So another smallish fund, the Economic Development Fund was established to support economic development initiatives in Monmouth to help grow our business support and jobs in Monmouth. And it was established through the sale of a city building back in 2014, kind of was the seed funds for this. And the idea at that time, I believe, was to create a small business lending fund, a revolving loan fund, so that we could do kind of those micro loans to small businesses to help them with repairs or equipment. And it evolved to a little bit more than that. And I think that's actually a good thing to be able to offer support where we can. We've run our state and federal grant assistance for economic development initiatives through this fund, to make it a little easier to track and measure and monitor. And so most recently, we did a small business resiliency grant program where we were able to make grant awards to 14 local businesses, totaling just under 130 or just over 130,000. And that leveraged over 900,000 of private dollars to make improvements. This one I like to point out is the Sabray's Coffee Roaster. If you've been in there recently, they're brewing their own coffee. They were a grant recipient and had several others that were recipients. So those were ARPA funded dollars, and guess what? They're going to so we'll have to search for other opportunities there. We were fortunate to get a federal grant through the U.S. Economic Development Administration to do a feasibility study on a year-round food cooperative kind of grocery store market. That work is wound down and completed this fiscal year, so I'm looking for the next steps on that project. I believe there still is the goal to create that small business loan program. We were just trying to utilize the funds that we had in the opportunities that arose through ARPA and through other federal grants. But as grant funds kind of dry up, then I think there'll be more time and capacity to develop that small business microloan program. So I do believe that there still is a need and a desire for that. But there's some staff legwork that'll need to go into finding a business or a partner that can do the business lending side. Paperwork either through Council of Governments, who already has revolving loan programs, or maybe called CDC. So fleshing that out. So you'll see in this fiscal year, we're proposing some funds around 26,000 to get that program up and start some lending on that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the economic development.
Any questions? Economic development. Okay, now we'll move on to the building food slide.
Yeah, you don't get to go yet. I was like, where are you going?
Great, I can have a guest join me like that. So here, our building official. So let's see here, get situated on the right page number. Like we're on page 9. Backwards here. Right. So for our building services department, we are a fully full service jurisdiction providing all of the various plan review and inspection programs for plumbing, structural, mechanical, electrical, fire sprinklers, and also review of manufactured homes. We have 2 full-time staff, that is Greg and Troy Kogu, who is our building inspector. And we also have about a half of an FTE of support staff and inspection services that help round out the service personnel in this department. There are a number of activities that the building department has been busy with over the past year. A lot of the single family home construction has kind of slowed a little bit. There's been another phase of Edwards Addition that subdivision that recorded, so there are some permits coming in there, but there's been continued inspections and development review through the Riddle Road project north of town, and also some commercial projects that have continued to happen. I think some of the permit activity that we thought was going to happen this fiscal year has gotten delayed for numerous reasons. People waiting for interest rates to potentially come down, costs being higher than what they initially anticipated when they're going out for bids. So you will see that some of our building permit estimated revenue for building permit fees has gone down from what was projected on page 98. But we anticipate sometimes these cycles go up and down, and things they will hit in the following year. So sometimes it's just a timing issue. So you'll see that we do expect some of those building permit revenue fees to come back up next year, as we'll have additional commercial projects. WU is planning a data center project on campus. There's another phase of Riddle Road apartments to be completed. There's the new Qdoba restaurant and a 4-story mixed-use building next to Monmouth Commons that are all kind of somewhere in the planning permitting process. So, and then again, single family will probably be pretty slow until we get those next subdivisions up and running with some new infrastructure in 1 to 2 years. So, trying to think of other materials and service costs are pretty consistent. You'll see an uptick in some of the technology purchases, again, for replacing computers, and the building department is in the process of a lease to own purchase of a large scale printer to be able to scan and print building plans. It's great to be able to use some of those technology fees for that needed piece of equipment. Salaries and wages, like a lot of the other departments, has gone up. We'll see that. But one of the things, and Greg can speak to this a little bit more, just again, that importance of looking at our building permit fees and making sure that we have a reserve, because building cycles do tend to go up and down, and you need that reserve to be able to withstand the slower years, so you don't have to lay everybody off and then quickly try to scale back up. So just trying to look a little bit more forward on that. I don't know, Greg, if you wanted to talk a little bit more about the fees or the projects.
You pretty much covered all the projects. I do know that the church on Clay Street's gonna bring in 4 or 5 buildings here shortly, next month or two, for a couple duplexes, a triplex and a fourplex, I think. And everything else is kind of just on standby. We're on phase 1, like Suzanne said, of the Riddle Road is complete. Now they're gonna go to phase 2, and I think there's still 10 or 11 buildings still to be built there, so it's about halfway through the project. So that's moving forward. I don't really have a whole lot to say other than any kind of questions anybody may have.
Your Jersey Mike's and didn't hear anything about the gas station on the corner. I'm gonna ask before Mr. Carey does.
So are you talking about the vacant lot there in the corner? So that is on kind of standby because they still have contaminated soils. They gotta get that out of the way first before they do anything, so I don't know about that. I do know the one there's another gas station, for some of you that might not know, that's gonna kind of maybe go in a catty corner from that. They're having a little bit of design issues there as well, but I think they'll get around it. They're actually the same people that are gonna do Cordova restaurant here. And just to let you guys know, because we get a lot of questions about this, that Cordova restaurant, their goal is to be opened up by August 1st. Wow. So, and.
The bank.
Yeah, the bank, yeah.
Qdoba, sorry.
Oh.
Wait, hold on.
So it's just like a big remodel inside. On the outside, not a whole lot's gonna happen, but mainly it's just completely from a bank to a restaurant. So they're gonna completely redo the inside and redo all that stuff.
Isn't it right next to my office?
No drive. No drive.
Oh, yeah.
No, we got a call up for Jersey Mike and then went silent. It's been dead for quite a few months now. The one that's frustrating to me is that we've had Peter from White Oak Construction about the car wash that everybody wants. Has called us 2-3 times. Yeah, I thought he was gonna come in January, but we're still on hold for that. But I think he is gonna come in this year sometime with that car wash. It's gonna go right behind the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, it's sold to a different owner who's done car washes in other cities like Dallas and Midville. So I think it's just a timing issue. They found there was another project that kind of jumped the queue for that. So.
You know, on contaminated soils on the former Utica, are they gonna have to dig that out again?
I'm not sure. I'm not with DEQ. Okay. I don't know what DEQ standards are.
Maybe you've seen a report.
No, I hadn't seen the report, but I know they tried to get a test and they failed. So that's why they didn't get any permits yet to build whatever they're gonna build out there on that lot.
The company that was monitoring the issues contract ran out. So they're still doing testing, but they're coming in, testing and leaving. They're not leaving the barrel. The barrels were there because they had a system taking samples directly into the barrels and they'd pull theirs from the barrel. They got it to a point, but there's still some concern about some lateral movement and some of the contamination under neighboring buildings. So they're still looking at that, and it takes a little bit. We still have issues with the contamination in our water trench lines in Main Street. So it was a pretty significant spill.
Right, okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions about the building fund?
Maybe we could get Independence to transfer their cement building down to our lot.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Stonehenge.
Counselor Carey.
Any more questions about the building fund budget? Thank you. I have one, I see that the building official FTE went slightly below 1% or 1. Very little, but slight change there.
So it went from 1 to 0.96. Did that get budgeted, I think, in another, was that part of moving around?
Yeah, that
was part of the allocation. Okay. So I'm not sure, I don't know, Sean, do you know which one it got allocated?
I'll have to double check and I'll
Okay.
come back.
Yeah, but seems like it's something in public works, so there's some inspection.
It's for public works for like doing sewer line inspections or water
Yeah.
line inspections.
There we go.
Because, David Carr and Public Works does the public side, we do the private side. But we also, I work closely with David, and sometimes if I'm in the gym, can't get out to some, he can go out and vice versa, so we kind of help each other a little bit when we're short-handed, when we got open trenches and they need to get inspected, so they get buried, so there's kind of a life safety thing there that needs to happen, so sometimes we can't always get the inspections readily available, so I'll call David and have him go look at it or something, so they don't have to keep the ditch all open all night or all weekend or however it works.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's not at all.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You have a great day. Thanks, you guys. Even the first show.
So now move on to agenda item 14, and all its sub items, public works fund presentations, and we like back up David Carr, the first director, and for the marathon presentation.
You got 28 minutes, David.
Yeah.
All right.
No, just take your time and do it. You get it.
So I want to start out, again, thank you. The Public Works Department, we went through a pretty significant restructuring with Russ's absence. And this was in an effort to, one, spread some of these salary allocations. I'm the Public Works Director. Matt Johnson, who was our Water Operations Manager, is now the Deputy Public Works Director. He's got a pretty good depth of knowledge, and he's certified across all utilities. Then we opened up his old position and promoted Cody Goings from within into that position. He's certified. He's been in the job for about a week, and he's actually doing a pretty good job. So we'll have a job opening to backfill Cody's job, which I believe we're going to have to advertise out publicly due to the requirements of the position and the certifications needed to fill that. Oh yeah. I got my notes. I had it all written. Mark Landau used to be our sewer, storm, and streets operations manager. He has moved to an infrastructure compliance and facilities manager position, and that was a result of trying to bring all the maintenance of all the city facilities together. We were seeing some inefficiencies. Public Works had a contract for this, City Hall had a different contract for this, library had a different one. So we moved Mark into that position, and he's actually done a really good job. He's taken over a lot of the maintenance, or not taking over the maintenance. He's helping coordinate estimates for maintenance on needed maintenance at the library, the HVAC, the police department, the HVAC. He's the one going out and getting the bids, getting them numbers, and trying to get things lined out like that. It's been a real asset, I think, to the city, and he's being utilized pretty heavily because there's been a lot of deferred maintenance in some of the city facilities. I'm going to give a summary of kind of the capital highlights from last year or ongoing. So we're in the middle of a rate study for our water rates. We're using OAWU for that study. We are getting close to the end of it. It is changing considering some of the changing methodology for a meter multiplier methodology, which will allow us to recoup some of those costs for some of the heavier water users in town. I'm one of them. I run a farm in my backyard. I use a lot of water during the summer and I'm aware of the impacts it's gonna cause me, but there are some larger users in town that, in my opinion, they're not covering their fair share. Right? That leads to us having not the money to do the necessary maintenance or some of the water expansion that we need to do.
Conservation.
Yeah, it promotes conservation inadvertently, right? People tend to irrigate a lot more than they need to. And there's some HOAs that do it, Hoffman, Edwards, some of those get up there pretty high. I'm not saying I haven't analyzed their water usage, but it makes them actually look at what their usage is going to be and have some implied conservation. So it's not just about collecting money to cover our inputs. Right now, we're behind on what it takes us to create water. So there's some of that needs to be corrected. Looking forward, some of the biggest things for us as it applies to this budget is our master plans. We do not have a stormwater master plan, which is problematic. Our sewer master plan, it's embarrassing to say, is from October 1999. We will need to update our water master plan to allow the provisions for the regional water system going in. Right now, that is not identified in our master plan. We need it in there so we can commit monies if that project keeps proceeding as we hope it will. Our street master plan is currently being updated. The next council meeting, May 19th, I believe we're bringing it back for discussion. So it should be adopted fairly shortly. And some of those things will expedite development, lower some of the development costs. We're going with narrow streets, narrower right-of-ways, implementing landscape strips between curb and sidewalk for some of the safety of the pedestrians, as much as our street operations hate that. But it's just a standard of practice nowadays, and it needs to be part of our system. I actually didn't think I'd get up to do this tonight, so. Try to get through it fast. I will go down through the budget items for each fund. A lot of these I tried to keep pretty equal, right? I'm new in this department. I didn't want to upset the apple cart. I didn't want to say this is all wrong. I have some opinions about how some of the numbers are tracked that would help the department moving forward with different allocations to different funds that I feel are more appropriate to what those monies are being used for. So you'll see going across professional services, I got down a little bit. We did not renew our contract with AKS Engineering.
Can you what page you're on?
I'm sorry. I'll get there.
You're starting, yeah.
I'm still trying to catch my breath.
No, it's okay. I'm starting. I think you covered a lot of different funds that I think you're narrowing down. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Page 70.
70, okay.
So this will be the sanitary sewer. Sorry, I'll give page references moving forward. So professional services, there's a big drop. We did not renew AKS's contract. I didn't feel that we were getting the best value with that company. They're a big company and they can do a lot of heavy stuff, but our city, I don't think, has the need for a company of that size. I can bridge a lot of those engineering requirements in-house because I have an engineering license. I've actually designed all of our overlays for the last few years. It doesn't make sense to me to go out for some of that stuff. There is some stuff that outside firms will be needed to accomplish, but that's some of the reasoning behind that. Operating supplies is going up a little bit. There's been, I'll just be honest with you, with how I approach the department, it's paramount to me that the guys that work for me have all the equipment they need to do their job most efficiently. We have valve exercising program. They're still out there turning every single valve in the city by hand. There's battery powered valve exercisers that don't cost a lot of money. And most of our guys are not young, and you're out there doing this all day, 8 hours a day, turning valves on and off. It can wear on the guy. So I'm really investing in some of this equipment to make their jobs easier. And we should realize the efficiencies in the departments pretty quick. Facility maintenance and repair, I jumped up, the projection was 84, but that comes back to, there's been a lot of deferred maintenance in our facilities across the city. There's things that need to be repaired, you know, the Marion County building, the well project was a great example. That building's been falling apart ever since I started here. You walked out there, you could see the gaps between the bricks. That's all been repaired, but on the heels of that is the next building, right? We want to be proactive, not reactive to these issues. Reactive typically costs you more money. I&I is a big one. Our sewer lagoons have plenty of capacity. The problem we're seeing is in big rain events, a designer designs for 600 gallons per acre per day. I did the calculations from the last storm event. At our sewer pond, we were seeing 6,000 gallons per acre per day. So we've invested in equipment. Our sewer guys, we have smoke testers now. We're bringing all of this maintenance in-house. We have the TV system, which was done last year. I've gotten them, the smoke testers is the big one. We can do all that in-house. And as we walk through our sewer master plan, that will give us the guidance for our programs, but we'll be able to self-perform that work. I'm looking for any other jumps. Like I said, most of them are pretty similar across. Getting down to capital expenditures, there's two items that are getting hit. One of them is for vehicles. We have on the vehicle replacement program, there'll be a 1/2-ton 2-wheel drive pickup, and then it's our service trucks needs to be upgraded. And we'll see that. I'll point it out across all the funds. The service truck's obviously a pretty significant expense for a fully, without tools in it, we're probably $150,000 to $170,000. We've already called some of the dealerships around trying to get a better price for pre-done trucks. We typically, in years past, bought the truck and chassis. We went and bought the box and had it all done, put all the lights on it. A lot of the dealerships, you'll see it at Capital and at Power, they have these vehicles pre-packaged, which would be my preference, because then if we have warranty issues, we're going to one place for warranty issues instead of the box manufacturer, the light manufacturer, all that stuff. The bigger one down there is the recycled water project. That is for our reuse site out at the Riddle Farms. We actually got our approval from DEQ for alternate site. The Riddle farm was not working out. We're paying a pretty steep price every year to use that, but we have to get rid of our effluent reuse. We can't discharge it at the river. So we got fortunate. One of the neighboring farmers was open to that consideration. And so we've got a project to pump it. I think it actually borders the Riddle farm to the north. And that's a pretty significant investment for that. I think the estimate, and it's not all obviously in that line item, we're using multiple funds to accomplish that, is about $4 million. And for us in sewer, that's significant. Do you want me to go through all the funds, or do you want to ask questions fund by fund? Questions? You smile like that, John. What do you got?
So, statistics for sewer. Workload statistics for sewer includes the dry day weather flow and wet day weather flow. It looks like it's about 1.1 million gallons difference, and that's the infiltration you were talking about.
Correct. So we have an I&I program. When I started 2 months ago, the budget was $100,000. There was $1,400 spent. I've spent just in my 2 months, almost $80,000 of that getting this I&I program where it needs to be so we can address those issues. We have significant pipe breaks where we're essentially dewatering people's property. We're just taking all that water in. Once it goes through the sewer plant, that is very problematic. Our pumps, our dosage of our chemicals, they're not made for that volume of flow. So we have to go through and get all these pipes repaired. And a lot of them we can do within the pipe. You know, there's pipe bursting. You can do a lot from inside the pipe nowadays, which keeps that cost down and not having to open trench down the middle of roads.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
The service you provide me is excellent. Is there any chance that it's gonna get worse? You're giving me some bad news. I don't like hearing what you're saying.
No, it'll never get worse. What I'm doing is again, proactive, not reactive. I'm looking 20 years in the future, not next year.
I can sleep there.
Yeah. You want me to go back on this one? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna step back a little bit. There are some accomplishments of each of these departments listed, and I haven't really gone over those. I wanna make you aware of the things that, even though the money isn't spent, there's other things that we're really doing that's good. The engineering and permitting for the recycled site development, I actually just found out that DEQ approved our plans yesterday. We still have to get a permit from Polk County. Yeah, there's the O part. We sent 66.5 million gallons of treated effluent out to the 116 acres out at Riddle Road. That is a lot of effluent. We're very fortunate to have that system available to us. The I&I work, we brought in a contractor last year that repaired some pretty significant issues. We have manholes, right? They're stacked in concrete. Those seams start leaking after a time, so they can go into the inside of the manhole and seal them and get rid of those issues. The SCADA, the telemetry system, we're constantly upgrading that, and that is mainly a result of the technology with SCADA is ever evolving. We have some issues. A great example is we lose connectivity between the office and the sewer plant. As of last week, we were losing it every couple hours. Fortunate as Minet offered to help us run new fiber cable. So a lot of these departments, we do help each other out with some of those things. Greg was talking about our involvement together within the building department, and it's very advantageous across all departments in the city when you have that overlap. I would say a few years ago, some of these departments were pretty siloed, right? They were taking care of what they were going to take care of and not reaching out to some of the other departments. We have initiated the sewer rate study. It has already begun, but you can't complete that until the water rate study is complete, because some of that funding is based on what those water rates end up being. We replaced major components. We actually have a pump right now being rebuilt. It's an ongoing thing. Our sewer operator has only been at the city for a few years, so he's brought a different perspective, and he's really good at maintenance, and it's identified some things that we're knee deep, so to speak, and getting fixed. We did purchase some of the half-ton vehicles last year. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but there was quite a few. We replaced 2 Ford Rangers, right? If you that used to be my truck. If you know Matt Johnson, you should have seen him and I driving around in that Ford Ranger. His mom confuses us when she walks in the office because and everybody thinks we're brothers. So we actually got a pretty good kick out of it.
Karen Johnson.
Yeah. Any other questions on the sewer? Trying to move fast, and I know we're already,
Not necessarily just on the sewer, but a little while back you mentioned the lack of updated or master plans. Like there were 3 different ones you referenced. Is there a priority of one over another, and cost-wise, like, does that factor into how quickly those might be taken on as project?
I don't think the price impacts. My opinion is the sewer is the highest priority because of our I&I. What that'll do is identify our I&I, give us the program to address it, allow us to get funding tied to recommendations in a master plan, and it'll also consider the impacts to our sewer plant. Sewer plant work is crazy expensive. So what I'm hoping is by reducing our I&I, it'll create that additional capacity down at the sewer lagoons. We have capacity for every pending potential subdivision right now. Again, this is me 20 years from now. So yeah, in my opinion, that sewer master plan is the most critical. Probably behind that will be the water master plan update, so we can stay involved with this regional process. The stormwater one is going to be a big lift because it doesn't exist. Currently, City of Monmouth does not have any water quality requirements. So I'm gonna get those folded in, and on the heels of all this, I have to update all the public works design standards because those are from, I believe, 1988. So there's a lot of work that's gonna happen down at Public Works. That's why I've pulled some of these projects back, so some of these funds will roll over, because out of the gate, there's gonna be some pretty significant capital outlay to get some things taken care of. I know in that sewer plan that we're gonna identify, I would imagine at least a handful of really significant breaks in our lines or leaks. One of the big ones I can think of runs underneath Western Oregon University's parking lot, and it flows water in July.
Question. Is there a reason we didn't use more ARP money to do this type of work? I thought that was the purpose of the ARP money. Am I right or wrong, Steve?
Well, ARPA money we did use for some things, but it wasn't for infrastructure. ARPA, oh, okay.
I thought that
ARPA was not the Infrastructure Act. ARPA was the COVID recovery stuff. So that went to a lot of other programs and safety, security, things like that. It was not an infrastructure.
But there's no reason we couldn't have, right?
I don't know.
I'm just curious.
I
Looks like we have a missed opportunity.
No, I mean, I think we
Yeah.
used it for a lot of projects that need to get done.
Yeah.
So I have budgeted for us to fully pay for our master plans. There's some really good grant programs for master plans, but again, been in the position 2 months, haven't had the chance to apply for them. I have reached out and had feedback for discussions and what we need to do and what our options are. It's not just one grant fund. There's multiple grants available for master plans because it is such a critical piece for your long-range planning.
And talk about how long it takes to do a master plan. That may be why ARPA funds weren't used to do you can talk to that.
Yeah, the master plan is not a 2 to 3 month process. It is minimum probably a year. Because there's a lot of back and forth, and there are state agencies that, like our transportation plan, ODOT reviewed our transportation master plan. There's DEQ will have to have input on sewer and storm certainly. So it takes a while because they're not exactly the most responsive individuals to work with. The stormwater might take a little bit longer only because it's a ground up master plan. You know, we don't have anything in place for the stormwater, so.
Are there any further questions about the sewer fund?
Taking the way there.
You're doing great.
I think we'll advance to the next one.
Yes, absolutely. So the
You're on the water.
the water fund. Some of our accomplishments, I'm on page 71. I got it. We completed construction of the city's Marion County well number 1 replacement. That included the building upgrades. We have decommissioned the old well number 1. We have another well on the other side of as you start coming up the Independence Bridge, that they're testing better than we were expecting. So it's really good. We're adjusting some of our treatment due to the well locations because they're impacted a little bit more by farming activities versus, we have a pretty significant blueberry farm right next to us, and that impacts our nitrates, which our 4th Street facility is designed. But when they spike, we look at that and kind of tone down this well. We'll pull from the other one for mixing to keep us within parameters. We are partnering with Independence and Polk County on the regional water system. That's a pretty big one. I'm not sure we have time for me to really go into it, but it is everybody bringing their water rights, trying to put a single point of diversion from the Willamette River to supply water for Independence. Polk County is not going to be a water purveyor, but they have rights that they weren't doing anything with. So everything is getting moved. We're working on some of our rights to realize that we had some rights out towards Buena Vista that we had the opportunity to acquire years ago, that it's not practical for us to run a water line out to Buena Vista it wasn't a lot. So we're in the process currently of taking care of our water rights. It's been paramount that the city of Monmouth's water rights is more important than than anything, right? We have to protect our citizens, and the program is built in with off-ramps during certain steps of that project. We can get out of it without any consequences if we no longer feel it's in the best interest of the city of Monmouth. We had a sanitary survey audit performed, and as a result of that, we were awarded the outstanding performer for operational compliance over the last 3 years. So we always like to put feathers in the hat, the caps of the guys that are, they're not the people you see on the front line, but their work is really critical for the city. This one says we completed the water rate study. It was complete upon a final review by new staff. We identified some issues that we want looked at a little better before we consider adopting it. There was some initial budgeting and some of the things that we couldn't recreate the information. So we kind of pumped the brakes, talked to OAWU, who is doing the study for us, and got some updated information and walking them through some considerations, especially with how much water Western Oregon University uses from our system. Replacing the vehicles. We replaced the 3/4 ton old Ford with a newer one we kept the lift gate. Those lift gates are critical from us moving our big drums around full of chemical for water treatment and sewer treatment. Got rid of the 1/2 ton extended, and we got a double cab. The field guys really enjoy that because one of the other things I'm trying to accomplish is none of our guys have a set of tools in their trucks. They're all on the service truck. So they can't do quick little fixes. They have to come back to the shop, load up tools. And I will tell you, with a large percentage, they don't grab all the tools they need to get the job done. From a stop sign having been knocked off. If you had a set of tools, it's done. We can move forward. It's about this efficiency within the department is what I'm really trying to build. And yes, it's going to cost a little money, but I think my budget's still pretty balanced and within what it's been for years.
It's in your budget now.
Yes. So I will go to page 73. Again, personal services, professional services drop. AKS was a pretty expensive firm to do business with. They were approaching, well over $200 an hour for the people we were dealing with. I'm not saying they didn't do good work, but it's just not in our best interest to keep in that contract. Operating supplies, that's the little increase is these tools that I'm buying for these guys to help them out. The sewer department really needs a little upgrade. Some of the tools we're using are fairly old, like from the original Sears Craftsman series type tools. They're still holding up. It's great.
The good ones.
The really old ones with the high nickel tools were really
Get
good.
rid of those.
They're not those.
Can we get some money selling them to the Independence Museum?
You don't have it.
Stepping down, insurance was flat, straight across due to those increases. Fuel, I jumped this one up because a larger percentage of our fleet is for the sewer department, so the impact will be felt harder in this fund.
This.
Or, yeah, water, sorry, not.
I just want to make sure you're talking about the right one. Have a few of them.
The capital expenditures, so there's a 436, that sounds like 36 is for the vehicles. 400,000 is for a new backup generator at our 4th Street facility. It is severely outdated at the last, they go through and maintain them every year, but they told us last year that we need to get it replaced. And that is our main point of treatment before it gets to town. So we cannot be without a generator. We need that redundancy in our system and that security. There are power outages over there. Unfortunately, the 4th Street is not powered by our own power and light.
No, it's
So we have to wait to get things fixed.
right by my office. It's always going.
So if you're not aware, the 4th Street facility is at the end of 4th Street in Independence. Water comes right off the river, it goes through there, and then that's where it goes to the point of entry off Talmadge Road. Water line replacement. We have a lot of AC water line still in town. We have a lot of the downtown core blocks that have little 2-inch sneakers that come up and feed the back of a building. That's great for water service. That's not great for overall system stability and fire. Out here, when we did this project, we had this one connected. It really helped fire protection in this area. One block over, it doesn't connect. Another block over, it only comes up the street 50 feet. So we're trying to work our way out from the downtown core. Obviously, those are businesses. Get these connections done, get the system stabilized. And we have a really good water system for flow and pressure. Right around here, we're probably 70 PSI. The fire code requirement is 20 PSI. So we do really well with our system maintaining without having to have booster pumps. Most cities have booster pumps in order to supply fire. City shops, the $20,000, you'll see that across the few funds. This drives me crazy. We bought a brand new vac truck, right? It's $500,000 minimum piece of equipment. It's parked outside. I'm building a covered building to park it in. Again, I want that thing to last 20 years, not 10. Because it's a pretty significant investment. And those are the kind of things that I'd say pull my hair out, but I would keep my head shaved. It just kind of drives me nuts, right? I don't like seeing investments in equipment being exposed and shortening the serviceable life of that equipment. I have a problem. I'm trying to say it nice. So do we have any questions on this one? Yes.
There's one line item I just had a question about, organizational business expense. It went from 600 to 19,000.
I had on my note to point that out. As part of the regional facility, we have people that need to go to Washington, DC and be part of those discussions, whether that's Rochelle, Matt Johnson, or something else. So I put money in there to cover those expenses. And it's probably going to be a little bit more over this year because they're trying to secure the funding for the entire project. So there's going to be a lot more involved.
Can I give a little update on that?
Yeah.
I just found out yesterday, but the Councilor, President Kerry had gone back in March. This was along with Mayor Kate from Independence and Kenna West, and then Jeremy Gordon from the county also went. After those meetings, Representative Salinas let us know that she's put us on the list for $5 million. It hasn't been approved yet. It has to go through the whole budget process, but to get on that list is a big step. We also found out yesterday that Merkley has put us on for $5 million out of the Senate as well. So the funds aren't here, but it's really good to get on the list. So we got the first step. So that would be 10,000 to go towards the 10 million, which would do the design and engineering for the regional facility. So just give you an update on that.
Great.
Councilor Carey.
Yeah, that's good news on Merkley. We were unsure about him. It might be that that we're not able to double dip those. And Salinas being in the minority party is, even though she put in for 5 million, it would not be surprising if she's not cut back to 2.5 million. But if we could combine those 750 million is or 7.5 million be a good deal. David, just and I'm excited to hear your plans and your sort of reorganizing the department as in total. Your job is, and I'm not telling you what your job is, but you're looking out for the future. You're looking to modernize and a lot of other things. All of those are potentially have pretty deep impacts on rates. And so the rate study will be driven by the information that you put forth. And I just, I mean, budget committee members know me because I'm sort of a rate hawk on this. And I'm not opposed to increased in rates, but they need to be really justified. And I'm guessing that over time yours will be. And one other thing that sort of encompasses all of public works that has been frustrating for me is I'd like to know what your fleet looks like. I mean, I see we've got a half of, we're gonna share in one. We've got an extended cab a year ago. We've been, we tracked like 3 years for a 3/4 ton pickup that finally got purchased. So to get not only what you have planning going forward, which is essential, but also what we've done over the last few years, so we know what is coming. And that we've never been, it's not in, at least in the document that I have, it's not here now, and it doesn't need to be now, but in the future, that would be a good piece of information for this budget committee and the council to have. Really excited about the things that you're working on, and I think you're gonna do a great job. But understand that balance between, the protection of the ratepayer. I guess that's we're all responsible for that. But anyway, thanks.
So thank you, Council President Carey. So that was one thing that I was reading the minutes from the Budget Committee sessions last year. You made the same reference that you never know the status. So that is something that I'm going to implement with staff, and then we'll have quarterly updates to council. And then also as part of our CIP presentation during the budget cycle, we'll present what we have accomplished out of the previous approved budget. So that is on my radar. Thank you.
And Appendix 6 actually has some fleet information on it, so that'll be an easy base to update. Page 145.
Any other questions about the water fund?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for the presentation. I am particularly enthused to hear about forward motion with the regional water plan, and that's the potential solution in the future. I also love hearing the concept about potential off-ramps, should things not be for saving in the way that Monmouth, would benefit Monmouth. I do have full faith that it will proceed in that way, especially with a Smart Minds table, but it's nice to know that those options continue to exist. Building upon the remarks of Mr. Carey, I too hold some level of reservation about these potentially noted increased rates in the future. I'm happy to hear that the approach that you're taking with regard to the rate study and having a more, a more level view of higher water users. And ensuring that, we are compensated for, that water use. I would be interested not only in, and this is a broad comment, but I'll say it here because we're talking about rates here right now. I would be interested in not only a view of the individual rate and potential increases, as Mr. Carey noted, but the broader view of rate increases across the board through multiple city departments. And that's not something that you would be required to create, but I would hope that city staff would create, a rate dashboard so that we could see that historical increases of rates, and in a holistic view, see what those increases, what the impact of those increases here, and here have to the ratepayers. That collective impact across multiple categories, because that's the way that people experience rates, right? Not just ad hoc. So I hope that that's something to come in the future as we continue to consider rate increases. I recognize that systems need, maintenance, and that someone has to pay for that, but I'd like to have that broader view as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a really quick shout out to Andrew, who came to my house and helped me find a 0.01 water leak. It's worth every penny I pay for my water. So thank you.
Wow, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just to respond to the dashboard question, that is one of our goals for next year as well, is to create something like that. So
This may be a really dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Currently, does everybody who uses a gallon of water pay the same for the first gallon as they do for the millionth gallon they use over a period of time, or are the rates staggered?
No, there's a per gallon, there's a minimum charge, there's a baseline charge, and then it's per gallon pricing. So the reason we're doing the study is because when you have somebody, and I'm not trying to say anything about Western Oregon, but when they use 6 million gallons of water and they're paying the same per gallon as me who lives on Main Street, that's not very equitable, right? Their burden on our system is significantly more. So that's why we're looking at that meter multiplier. And again, that implied conservation, right? Water is going to be the most valuable asset any city has. It already is, but in 10 years, you're probably going to be very surprised about how valuable water sources are.
Thank you.
There is a about the water fund budget. Seeing none, and it's past 9 o'clock, it's good wrapping up point for the night.
I was on a roll.
You can stay.
We'll give your marathon presentation some respite.
You'll start further to
Yeah, and we'll have the owners taking time to go to sleep.
Sir, Carrie.
Thank you all again for your work tonight, and your staff, for all your work. We will recess until Tuesday, May 12th, 6 p.m.
6:30.
6:30.
6:30. You said 6.
Oh, 6:30. 6:30.
Don't panic us.
Thank you.